Hi there, I'm Miss Osuna, and today we are going to work on faces. This particular face is going to be a woman with dark skin, and then we will do different hairstyles. So going ahead, get started, grab yourself some drawing paper, create your base for your face, and then transfer it to marker paper. I'm just going to start here on marker paper just to save some time. So you're going to start off with your oval, and about midway, halfway across horizontally, that's where you put your eye. That's your eye line. Of course, we're using smiles and frowns for those eyes, and there's a teardrop shape toward the center. Then you're going to go on ahead with a frown and a smile for the top lip, and then two diagonal lines on the left and right for the bottom lip. Now just simply start to pull out the shape of the face. How wide is the face? How long is the chin? These are all decisions that you get to make. So I'm choosing to make this face more narrow because the last one, the one on the left, is more round. Now you have your frown for your eyebrow, and then just take your kneaded eraser, clean up any lines that you don't need, and then we can move forward. We're going to have the hair coming down in a very tight and controlled style that is close to the face, and at the forehead we'll have it go up and over to the right and to the left. So we have a poof at the top of her head, but very close to the face when it's by the cheek. So this gives the feeling of a nicely controlled bob that just has a very high poof at the top center. So now just take your first color. So I have a caramel color, and this is going to be my first color. The end result is going to be that she has dark skin, so I will continue going darker. And then once I have some of these darker shades, I'm going to jump back to my very lightest color, which is a camel color. Okay, I'm going in with a darker chocolate, and I'm sticking to the very outer edges once again, and that is going to help starting to add some depth. I'm using the brush tip side of this particular marker, but remember, you can use whatever markers you have, even if they're not the exact same colors. Just play around with your blending, and we will be using colored pencil to blend on top of this as well. Next, I'm going to go to camel. That's even lighter than the first color. And I am going to start to fill in most of this sketch. I'm just going to leave a little bit of white space, mostly toward the center of the head, just above the eyebrows and just above the nose. Next, we're going to move to black colored pencil on the top of our eye. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of this black colored pencil to the center of the eye on the bottom. And I also do the same thing by the ear. Not going all the way across really harshly. I just want to emphasize the center of the eye at the bottom and then by the ear on the bottom. And now a terracotta brown colored pencil to pull out the eyelid and eyebrow. Next, I'm just going to add some black colored pencil to the brow itself. So notice the layering of the colored pencils to come up with the dark brown eyebrows. Now we're going to go into lip color, and for this exercise, of course, I want to make sure that we are challenging ourselves. So I'm going to pick a slightly less than traditional lip color. This is going to be a very deep aubergine or a very deep eggplant. So I have a fine point side of my design marker, and I'm just barely touching. I don't want to push too hard, but I do want to leave white space in the middle of the lip on the top and the middle of the lip on the bottom. And of course I'm darkening in between because there's a shadow in between the top and bottom lip. Now I'm going to go in with a violet colored pencil to darken. And that's going to start to deepen this to make it that deep aubergine color, that very deep eggplant color. And here we have black colored pencil on the very outer edges. That is something that you'll notice. These shadows are much more easily attained by just having a dark colored pencil. I'm also adding it to the eyelid, but remember it's very gentle and very subtle. And you just keep adding a little bit more and a little bit more until you get the color you're after. Now here I'm just softening the black colored pencil just the tiniest bit with terracotta colored pencil. Okay, here I'm gonna darken everything all over again with a chocolate brown. And I'm using the brush tip side of my marker, very lightly touching the paper on the outer edges just to darken these edges. Once again, you could be done by now. It just depends on what amount of intensity you're looking for your shadows. And you could also be done by now with this style of eye without putting in the center of the eye, because in some cases, depending on your collection, leaving it white might be a very good look, depending on what your designer has created. Now let's move on to the hair color. So ultimately her hair is going to have a reddish brown tint. And so I'm starting off with a brick red, and I'm doing a frown shape from the crown of the head over, starting at the crown of the head, going to the right and going to the left. And I'm going to give her a relatively high poof. So her hair will be in a bouffant very, very high at the very, very top center of her head. And then it's going to come close to her face by her chin and by her cheekbones. Now I'm going in with just a darker tone, and this brown once again is in that chocolate family, but I'm layering it on top of the red so that you can kind of see through it. And so that's what I mean by this reddish brown color for the hair. It ultimately is coming because we are layering these red and brown tones together. Now I'm gonna just continue blending with a lighter red. This particular poppy is see-through, so it's called poppy, but again, as long as you just have a lighter color, I'm putting that right on top to blend, and I'm just extending the length of the hair a tiny bit down by her chin. Okay, here I'm going in with a burnt umber, so this is a very dark brown. Once again, it's just that layering effect. And notice that the shadows being on the outer edges of the face are created because the hair closest to the face would cast a shadow. And then also the outer edges in general of the sketch would have a little bit more shadow, especially on the shadow side, which my shadow side is the left side. So like I said, you could be done at this point once you blended in the hair to the point that you want, or you can continue adding layer after layer. Okay, once I finish with these deeper tones, I'm gonna go on ahead and add the caramel color once again for more layers, and I will continue moving in this process. Back and forth, layer after layer, markers that are medium, darker, and then lighter, and then adding colored pencils on top for that thickness. So you can go on ahead and continue watching, or you can stop yours at this particular time if you feel like you've captured what you wanted, and then move on to the next part of whatever your project is. So back to the terracotta colored pencil to blend. And really, once you get used to the combination of 3 shades of marker, light, medium, and dark, and then 3 different shades approximately or more of colored pencils, and going back and forth between the two, and then using shadow tones, which could be black or they could be dark, dark gray, you'll very easily start to remember what comes first, what goes second, etc. So here I'm just darkening the shadow tones, but the hair is still red, but I'm using black. But this reddish, auburn, brownish color hair is still showing through, even though I'm adding black colored pencil, because really this is just adding the low lights and the shadows. And here I have a dark gray that I'm just gonna add to the shadow tone even more. Okay, so now I'm just adding an even darker gray. The lines and the strokes are short. They're staying mostly at the root and mostly at the edges. And now I'm just going to pull out a little bit of this very, very gentle terracotta colored pencil on the cheeks just for the contour. And that contour is very light, small circles. That's all I'm doing, barely touching the page, making very small circles at the bottom of her cheekbone. Now we can move on if you want to continue on and add the eye, but like I said, you could stop here and just leave it plain white just the way it is for a very interesting and different look depending on your collection. So I'm just going on the outer edges of the center of our eye here, the very bottom and outer edges with the black fine point pen. And then I'm going to add some smile shapes for the lashes. And again, as heavy or as thick as you want. You know, lashes are all the rage. People love them. People wear fake lashes all the time. And I know people play. They wear exaggerated ones. They wear natural ones. So this is really up to you to decide what look you're going for your particular collection. Let's soften down a tiny bit of those lashes with black colored pencil on top of that fine point pen. And here we're just going to add some highlights with white colored pencil. Sometimes you could do this with yellow, depending on the color hair you want, or even peach. All right, let's move on to the next model. We are just going to simply put black hair and we are going to have it be pulled up in a very, very high ponytail. You could add bangs. I'm not. I'm just going to have it all slicked back. So we'll just draw in the shape of the hair, a little bit wavy at the top, moving your hand up and down just so that's not a perfectly straight line, and then draw in your ponytail. Okay, I'm going to keep this pretty straightforward and have black mostly, and this is the wedge side of my black marker, and we're just going to start filling it in at the hairline, and then we'll jump to the very back of the hair, and then we'll do the ponytail. Now we're just going to switch over to a gray. So once again, I started with the darker and then I moved back to the lighter. And this is a technique that works well for some people, but if you prefer, you can always start with the lighter and then move darker. Now I'm going to move on to black colored pencil and start to blend. So here I'm going to start off for the ponytail with the gray instead of the black so that you can see what works best for you. Everyone is very, very different as far as how they perceive. Everybody's brain works slightly differently. So you may perceive better and you may be able to have a better feeling by starting off with the lighter shade. So now I'm going to jump to the black from my dark gray marker, and with this black marker, of course, you always color things in the same way that you've drawn them. So we're curving around toward the left because that was how we started the top of the ponytail. And then as you're adding strokes down through the hair, just continue doing it in the same way that you've drawn them. All right, now I'm just going to move to black colored pencil. Once again, we're just going to be blending. This is going to have a few strands of hair when we're done that are not completely slicked down on the bottom. Or you could decide, even for your own sake, to do a messy ponytail. I'm going to do a ponytail that's a little bit more controlled with just a few strands of hair that are a little bit more free at the bottom. Now I'm going to blend with a warm gray number 6. You can blend with whatever kinds of colors you happen to have, but I'm going to use the marker warm gray number 6, and I'm using the wedge tip. That's going to wet the surface and start to marry all of the layers together. Here we are with white colored pencil for some highlights. And now I'm just going to add some peach to that just to warm it up a bit. Next, we're going to move on to a black for the curly afro, and you can just see I'm making a wavy line. So it's an uneven line starting at the hairline, and then I'm going slightly above the scalp, and I am just simply adding space in between these wavy lines. It's almost like cloud shapes, but I'm not coloring it in flat completely. I am leaving some space. So you can still see the scalp through it for now, but eventually it will look like highlights. So if you take a look here, you can see it looks a little bit like highlights. So now we're going to add to that, and we're going to continue on. So here I have white colored pencil, and I'm just going to make these same curly shapes. They're wavy lines, almost like making tiny, teeny little curls or squiggles. So as you add to that, you can see the depth already. Then from there, I'm going to go back in with black instead of marker. This time I'm making wavy shapes and wavy lines and squiggles with black colored pencil. Next is just going to be black fine point pen, and we're going to add more squiggles on top of that. Some of them are at the edges so that you can see little tiny teeny curls at the very edges, and then some are actually inside the hair as well. So just going ahead and mix that up. That'll do it for this tutorial. Hopefully you were able to learn something that helps to stretch your skills, and I definitely will look forward to hearing from you and seeing all the great work that you are doing. I'm Miss Osuna, and thanks so much for taking the time to sketch with me. And until we meet again, happy sketching!